Cup or bust? You bet it is.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Wednesday, September 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MonoMan12. That is Jacob Winans, and you can follow him on X at JakeW_8. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. You can do that all on FanDuel. Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on another edition of the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. And we are getting one step closer as Jacob is back here on another edition of Winans Wednesday. It's been a few weeks since we've been recorded a show together. Nick Fairbanks will be back on Friday for another edition of Fairbanks Friday. So it's absolutely getting real as Jacob, 27 days away from opening night by the time this recording drops. Etulus Terrain days away. So welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited. It feels like we're right around the corner now. So you can definitely feel it in the air. It's exciting time.
Yeah. Etulus Terrain and Scott Mellenby days away from opening night. Don't want to forget him. But today on the show.
Nick Bukestad.
And Nick Bukestad. Yes, Big Nick. But today on the show, we are going to discuss why it's cup or bust for the Florida Panthers. We're going to discuss the moves. We're going to discuss the stages of the opposite of the stages of grief. We're going to go with the stages of bliss in this example and how it's led to why it is cup or bust for the Panthers. And also we are going to discuss just overall our feelings from these last four playoff rounds and why it's so would be so different. It would be business as usual once again when the Florida Panthers are in their pursuit of a three-peat. But let's start off with this one, the most low-hanging fruit of them all when it comes to just the fact of why it's cup or bust, because of the reasoning of Bill Zito wanting to bring everybody back, the key free agents, Marchand, Bennett, Ekblad, and thinking about, there's a little bit of luck that came with the salary cap rising, along with how much the Panthers also just wanted to be together once again. But you don't make these moves, first of all, if you don't believe that you can do it again, especially because of how dominant they were in this time, winning their second cup in a row.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it a few weeks ago, how this offseason was sort of the ultimate bet on ourselves type of offseason for Bill Zito. I think the entire way they retained the talent on the team and are literally running it back. It's a bet that the Panthers are so far ahead of the rest of the competition right now that the rest of the league won't catch up within this year. And you don't take a gamble like that unless you're absolutely going with a cup or bust mentality. You don't sign a Brad Marchand who's nearing 40 years old to a 6-year deal that we would be surprised if he plays out the entire length of that contract. You don't ever put pen to paper on that unless you're in a cup or bust kind of mode. Win the win now, stack as many championships as you can, kind of wide open window. It's real, and I think that's the mentality that everyone has in the organization right now. So it's absolutely cup or bust. But I will say this: when you talk about cup or bust, usually it's not as luxurious as it is right now for the Panthers, because you can have cup or bust and be in win now mode, and all the pressure in the world is on you because you haven't won before. But they have the luxury of being back-to-back Stanley Cup champions. So cup or bust, well, that's definitely the mentality. It's also not like they haven't won before and are trying to break through for the first time.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a different type of mentality when it comes to cup or bust. But the players, when they go into training camp, the media day and everything, it's also their mindset is just to try to turn the page from the previous season. That you got to throw everything away. You got to go through the process over again. You got to go through the intense Paul Maurice training camps, as we love to talk about here on the show, and the fact that that these are things that are get asked by the players. I mean, yeah, that part of the training camp is part of the conditioning, and those board battles, like we mentioned in the very beginning of Paul's first training camp, really resulted in how the Panthers have been able to do that all throughout their so far 3 years in this system as well. But I mean, listen, I mean, you think about the difference between backs against the wall for the Panthers on how they've been able to change the direction of their franchise. I mean, you think of franchise altering games as well as when you're talking about that game 7 in 2024. If they don't win that game, I mean, do they ever get back? I mean, we even thought about a little bit of that in 2023 as well, which we'll get a little bit more in segment number 3 about just our overall feelings. But I mean, if the Panthers don't end up winning it, it's not like everybody's looking down on the franchise as a whole. Like you said, the fact that they've done it before, but the players don't want to go through that feeling again of not being a champion. I mean, and honestly, I'm very interested to see when we get to media day. Last year, the questions were, does winning the Stanley Cup make you want to win it more? And obviously they said yes, and obviously they proved it. What's it going to be this time around when they're asked? Because that would be like kind of handing them a little bit of a layup when asking them what their approach is to this season.
Yeah, and I think we're now reaching the territory of their goals and motivations are going to be a little bit unspoken. And what I mean by that is they have a chance to solidify themselves as one of the greatest hockey teams in the history of the sport. They can really become one of those dynasties that's talked about throughout the history of the NHL. And it's very uncommon, and we haven't really seen that in the salary cap era. But they have an opportunity to be special and to be remembered pretty much for the rest of the time that the NHL is in existence as one of the greatest dynasties to ever play the game. That's the kind of legacy they have, an opportunity to carve themselves right now. It's no secret to the guys in the locker room that they have that opportunity. And that's not the type of thing you go tell the media necessarily. I mean, the Panthers have a few guys who are super outspoken and have no problem saying what's on their mind. Maybe you'll hear Matthew Tkachuk say it, but outside of him, it's a quiet group that goes about their business. But everyone in that room is well aware of what they have the opportunity to do, and I think there's definitely motivation there to become one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport, and they really have an opportunity to leave no doubt when you talk about that. So honestly, if I were in that room and if I were a player on that team, that would be what pushes me in these practices and what pushes me through training camp and what would get me going for these games and across the entire season. Yes, but leading up to playoff time, when the slightest little thing, you need bulletin board material or you need something to kind of get the engine running in some of these games. That would be the thing, is the opportunity to be historic.
Yeah, and definitely leave a legacy across the entirety of the NHL, especially what's happened, that because it's never happened post 2005 when the salary cap has come into play for the league. So it's a grand opportunity, and they don't even need to talk about it in the locker room. They know what is at stake. Absolutely. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss the stages of the opposite of the stages of grief. We are going to discuss just the stages of bliss and how that is carried over to how the Panthers got here and what they could build on. That's a hint, which we will discuss all that and more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. And most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have a full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance app tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization on your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let the financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off of your first year. That's 50% off of your first year at Monarch Money with code LOCKEDONNHL. And thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Winans Wednesday edition of the show. Armando Velez here with Jacob Winans. And not only is hockey closer to coming back, but tomorrow on the Empty Netters pod, Evan Rodriguez will be making an appearance. And Sam Reinhart is the Florida Panthers representative for the NHL North American Players Tour. So that's also something exciting. Can't wait to see what comes out of that. But Jacob, another discussion point that I want to discuss here on why it's championship or bust for the Florida Panthers is just the stages that they've gone through. And I wanted to go through kind of the opposite of the stages of grief. I mean, I'm thinking because something that was kind of left out was the fact that the Panthers could really take advantage of a weaker Eastern Conference. I mean, Toronto is going through the stages of grief, going through, especially with losing Mitch Marner and everything that all the talk that's coming out from his agent to Mitch Marner, all the security and everything in between. And the Panthers are going through the opposite. I know the Habs and the Senators are on their way up, but the Panthers really have the opportunity to still, at least in 2025-26, to really still be that class of the East and the NHL. So these are the five stages of. I looked up all the different antonyms for grief. There were 20 of them, but I decided to choose one word. Bliss is the word I chose. So these are the 5 stages, and I'm going to list them, ask you what you think, and then I'll kind of explain myself one by one. Hope, risk tolerance, reevaluation, execution, and building off the momentum. So when you think of those 5 stages, when you think of, and these are made up by me, what do you think of that when you think of just the Panthers fan base and even the Panthers organization of going through these stages of completing the mission and trying to build off of it?
Yeah, I think the two that really jump out at me are, one, building off the momentum. That's huge, and I think especially as a fan base, it goes well beyond what we're watching on the ice. There's a lot right now in the South Florida hockey space that where the Panthers and just the community in South Florida are really capitalizing and having an opportunity to build off of the momentum that they have from back-to-back Stanley Cup wins and just the way hockey has taken off in South Florida. It's a golden opportunity, and it doesn't stop when the Panthers stop winning Stanley Cups, which, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's going to be anytime soon. The cup window is wide open, but while they're dominating and while they're winning, there's such a wonderful opportunity right now in South Florida to grow the game, and I think we're really seeing that. And then the other one that really jumps out at me is your use of risk tolerance there. I think that, to me, kind of speaks to management and the roster construction and keeping guys and handing out term. I think when you win back-to-back Stanley Cups, your risk tolerance, you're willing to take a lot more risk, and you're willing to kind of go all out and throw everything at winning another one. So I think as fans too, you're you don't complain about the big deals for a guy like Sam Bennett. You don't complain about the long-term contracts for guys like Carter Verhaeghe coming off a down year. You're willing to tolerate a lot more risk because these guys have proven it. So I think that's another good one that you put in there.
Yeah, and Verhaeghe was on a 30-goal pace in the playoffs while he scored 20 in as an 82 game pace in the playoffs, and his pace was a lot lower in the regular season. So yeah, a lot of fans are able to just know, hey, we know he'll show up when it's right. But the other ones that I want to discuss here, hope. There was the hope of when Bill Zito was first hired, when Alexander Barkov first signed the $10 million a year contract right before the President's Trophy season. They hadn't won a round yet. But listen, when there was that hire of Bill Zito, he hadn't extended Barkov yet. He hadn't traded for Patrick Hornquist yet. He didn't do the first extension of Mackenzie Weegar before he traded him. Coach Quenneville wasn't his coach, although he left for a different reason, which that's a conversation for another day. He didn't get to handpick his coach until later on. So that's also a factor that existed when the hire first happened. Reevaluation, one of the other ones, as far as the stages of bliss, as made up by me, knowing what they did wrong and knowing how to fix not only the style of play, but who fits the character of the team as well. Obviously, execution is a little self-explanatory, doing it, but also going through the process of the growing pains with it. And I'm talking about mostly Paul Maurice's first season. And there's this quote, Jacob, that really stands out for me. It was the first day of January in 2023. The Panthers lose to the Rangers 5-3. Yaroslav Halak is the starter there, but they lose. But Paul Maurice goes to the media and says, I liked how we played in the final 40. And they gave up 5 goals. Then I remember just being annoyed. I remember just thinking, this team's 9 points out of the final wild card spot. But he saw something before everyone else did.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of the story of that season. There was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of I can't believe what we've done to this roster that has just won a President's Trophy, and now look what we did. And I'm not gonna lie, there were stretches where it felt a lot like when the year following the Panthers winning the Atlantic Division in 2016, and the following year they make a bunch of changes, reshuffle the front office. Gerard Gallant gets fired early on in the season. They went with a full analytics approach and just had a horrible year under the direction of Tom Rowe. That 2023 year felt like, oh my goodness, we had an embarrassing playoff out, but that was a President's Trophy winning team, and look what we've done. So I think replacing that doubt that so many people had during that stretch with hope when it finally started to look like it was coming together, and I think that kind of just builds off into the momentum topic, because it just seemed like a machine gaining steam at that point, and it just has not slowed down. The system caught on, the culture caught on. It's almost like I won't say a switch flip, because there were some games where they played well and didn't get the results, and then it was kind of a slow process to finally start seeing it pay off. And it took some really good goaltending from Alex Lyon and some really good goaltending in the playoffs from Bob when he got back into the net. But when the system finally clicked and guys finally got it, it's been a runaway train, and no one has been able to stop it.
Yeah, and that goes off to building off the momentum. I mean, you think about signings of even guys before they won the first cup of Oliver Ekman-Larsson, even 2 years, even before they won, even before the President's Trophy winning season, Joe Thornton, because they challenged Tampa to their biggest challenge when they won in 2021. And then you think about after the fact of winning, hey, there's other guys who want to take less and win a cup, Nate Schmidt, and then trading for guys like Tarasenko, Okposo, Brad Marchand, Seth Jones, you name it. But I think about why it's so important for this to be a cup or bust year is to continue to build off that. I mean, Tampa Bay is still viewed as a model franchise, and I don't think people realize it's been 4 years since they won they're going into their 4th year since winning their last Stanley Cup, and they're still viewed as that model franchise. So the fact that the Panthers, it's urgent for them to not only try to make history, but for that to be the only goal and the goal only. This has rippling effects. I mean, yeah, they're still going to have that reputation even if they don't win. But think about how many more added years this can be if they do end up three-peating.
Yeah, it could be huge, and it could be culture changing from the organization all the way down to the fan base, and even down to the community outside of the sport right now, and have the opportunity to grow it. It could do so many things, and I think obviously the players, they don't go in day to day thinking about that, but
Yeah.
The impact of winning a third consecutive Stanley Cup, it could be generational for not just the players, but the fans, the community, for the sport. I don't think anyone on the team is going to view that as added pressure. I think this is a team that sees pressure as opportunity. They've shown that time and time again. But it's really an incredible opportunity that they have in front of them right now. And I don't know. It just, when we talk about momentum, they've had all of it for 2.5 years. The only thing that slowed them down, and yes, they lost the Stanley Cup against Vegas, and but I never really saw that as their momentum or what was being built was ever stopped. I think they just ran out of gas that year, and all it did was spark the momentum going forward. And I think I really do think they're kind of just getting started. I don't really see anything in their path right now, barring injuries and age, which we know that comes eventually. But I don't know. I think this is legit. This is sustainable, and I think they have the right culture to continue doing it.
I remember Vladimir Tarasenko after Game 5 saying, "Pressure is a privilege," and the national media is not going to put pressure on them. I don't think even we are going to really put pressure on them. It's internal for all of them, because they're the ones they're the hungry ones that are going out there every single night and putting their bodies on the line, and they know. So, which gives us an opportunity to transition to segment number 3, where we are going to discuss the overall feelings of these last 4 playoff runs for the Panthers since 2022, and what will be the feeling of different milestones this time around, whether it's division titles, Prince of Wales, you name it. We're going to discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready to kick off with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. And although the Miami Dolphins had an embarrassing performance on Sunday, if you want to sprinkle in some money for their long shot chances to win the AFC East, you can put that. Or if you want to put in something that of first coach fired, maybe it's Mike McDaniel. Maybe he will be the guy and ending up as that first guy there. And you could do that all on FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Segment number 3 here on this Wednesday, September 10th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And some housekeeping here. Congratulations to Alexander Barkov, who's now part owner of the Palm Beach Royals Professional Pickleball Club. So not only does he own the hockey team over in his hometown of Tempera, but he also now loves Palm Beach County and is now really a true staple in the community. We talk about momentum, but it's more than just on the ice. It's off the ice, especially for the captain. He's an absolute legend in this region. So big congratulations to Alexander Barkov, as that sport is truly growing. And with a lot of sun here in Florida, I mean, this is the perfect place to do it. So yeah, congratulations to him. But Jacob, it's funny because I look back at how we felt during achievements and even failures for the Florida Panthers. And it's crazy because you and I've had an episode where the Panthers have won a Stanley Cup, the second one. We've also had an episode of when they lost the Stanley Cup, the Vegas one. You and I recorded that one. Nick and I recorded the episode where Ross Colton scored with less than 5 seconds left in 2022. And I always go back to what was I feeling at the time? And it's a big roller coaster between every single one. There's it's opposite ends of the spectrum based on how we felt and also how different it was experiencing it for the first time. And I'm talking about experiencing the Stanley Cup for the first time versus the second. Obviously, the taste of redemption that the Florida Panthers had when they got it done and the mission was to get back after as you mentioned earlier, battered and bruised. I just remember how down we were in the 2023 episode. And then I also remember recording when the Panthers won the Prince of Wales trophy in 2023. I was recording with David Lasser. I had a broom in my hand and just arm movements everywhere and even standing up there. But this time around, if the Panthers win the division, we're shrugging our shoulders. If the Panthers win the Prince of Wales trophy, just like last year, it's okay. That's not the trophy they want. The famous quote from Paul Maurice, don't touch that trophy. But also the sense of panic from down 0-2 in 2022 while having home ice versus being down 0-2 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. There isn't a sense of panic this time around versus what it was just 3 years prior. So I think that's why, in another way, that this is cup or bust, because we see the bigger goal at hand.
Yeah, I think the players have definitely grown and shown maturity where that's concerned. I think there's obviously lots to play for. There's personal accolades. I mean, they've got some guys winning some serious hardware. I think Barkov with a couple of Selke trophies, and Sam Bennett now has a Conn Smythe, and they've got some guys that have big milestones and a lot of personal accolades that they could chase. But I think the maturity on this team, no one cares about points, no one cares about goals, no one cares about assists, no one cares about individual records. It's really a one-track mind, a singular focus throughout the entire room, and that's hard. That's hard. That's a really hard thing to have. It's a difficult culture to build, and I think they have such a selfless group that really none of that stuff matters. A lot of it does, of course, matter to fans, but at the end of the day, any fan would rather see their team lift a cup than see their team have a player lift an Art Ross trophy or have a player lift a Rocky Richard trophy. That's cool. Winning a cup is amazing. And I think that's the preference of everybody. And I think the Panthers as a team have figured that out. There's a lot they could play for individually, but they just don't seem all that focused on it.
I can name one example on the top of my head: the Jim Gregory. The fact that Zito hasn't won it. I compared it to Leonardo DiCaprio. He's gonna win it in a year where it might not be his best work, but it's just like, oh, you are owed a Jim Gregory award, so we're gonna give it to you for all the work you've done in previous years. But yeah, he'd rather take the Stanley Cup than anything else. But also, I think about more and more about, yeah, there's also personal milestones that, yeah, Bobrovsky needs 31 wins to jump 5 spots in the all-time wins list in NHL history. But will he feel good after that season if he doesn't win? I mean, maybe not. Bob is very focused on the present. Even with his personal failures, he sees it as learning opportunities. Which, I mean, I'm here to say that if they don't win, it's still an opportunity to learn. Don't get me wrong, but when you're looking, even if they win a year in like 2027 or 2028, but they don't do it this year. Some people might ask the question, but did you do it 3 years in a row? And that's kind of what I'm thinking about when it came to putting this all together, when it came to this specific show, and just the talking points of this, and why it is cup or bust for the Panthers. So I think of all of that, of just once again being in a unique class. I mean, I also just did a quick Google search on how many goaltenders have won 3 Stanley Cups or more. 7. So Bobrovsky can become the 8th this coming season if the Panthers do complete the job. So that's also what's at stake. Paul Maurice, another thing of how he's turned it around from think about this, Jacob. Nobody talks about his regular season losses anymore. Isn't that strange how nobody mentions that?
Yeah, it's it was a huge talking point.
Yeah.
There were people calling him. Everyone would call him the losingest coach of all time. With
The Jeff Fisher of the NHL.
Yep, and now he's a back-to-back Stanley Cup champion, and is widely regarded as arguably the best coach in hockey right now. So it's funny. We talk about recency bias and things like that, but a lot of times it's just all it really takes is just that feather in the cap to flip an entire narrative. And Paul Maurice in the last 2 years has gotten 2 pretty nice feathers.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, he has an opportunity to continue to build on that. I mean, as far as going up on the wins list, he still the Panthers would have to win way more games than the Anaheim Ducks in order for him to actually pass Joe Quenneville, as Joe Quenneville is back in the NHL. But that's another thing that he will care about, just about trying to lift Lord Stanley's Cup. And I mean, you think about more and more about other milestones for the Panthers as far as championship success. I mean, you think about something like Sam Bennett and the pull-up story from the draft combine, and the fact that he went from that to Conn Smythe winner. And once again, it goes back to the stages of bliss in the second segment, just being able to build off that momentum. And Sam Bennett, after getting that contract extension, I feel like in the first few years he could exceed those 50 points that his career high was last year. Maybe it might be a slight regression after, but I think that in those first few years that he could really take the league by storm even more after that. So this is an absolutely great time once again in South Florida, in the whole build of the Florida Panthers, on just where they are. And I'm excited to once again experience this as we are just over a week away from Media Day. And yeah, it's not. And I'm glad that we also went into the show not saying yes or no. We just went straight to the yes here, which I'm glad that and and leave a comment down below if you guys feel the same way, and your explanations on why you believe it is actually cup or bust for the Florida Panthers. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Yep, absolutely. You can follow me on X at JakeW_8.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week as we will be preparing for Media Day. So thank you, my friend, as always.
Looking forward to it. It's about that time.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Jacob Winans, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.